Yeah, we're live. We are here. I got some more dyno results. We got graphs. We got photos. We got videos. We got all kinds of stuff. So we got some good stuff going on for tonight. So hopefully you guys are excited. And tonight it is all about big block Chevy. So I'm going to show you some big block Chevy stuff, some cool stuff. We've got carburation versus fuel injection, because give people more things to argue about because, there's no shortage of that going on right now. And then what happens also when we do a cam swap, and then before the cam swap, what happens when we add nitrous, because nitrous really is, and we've always described it, it is the easy button. there's no other easier button that actually is a button, and it works very, very well. So we're going to show you what happens when we do that. Basically, kind of the thing that we always do. It's a Gen 6 big block Chevy right from the wrecking yard. But on this one, what we normally do, in fact, I'll go ahead and we'll show you some photos here. So you can take a look. Like I said, Gen 6 big block Chevy. We ran it with the long runner fuel injected manifolds. And don't worry if you missed this, I can run it through many, many times. And then we ran it with the fuel injected manifold. And we ran it the way that we always do. We run it with the long tube headers and open exhaust, kind of usually a muffler section or something back behind it, a Mazir electric water pump. We ran it with an MSD distributor, and we took out the factory setup. And then we ran it with the Holley HP management system. And then that way we could dial in the injectors and all that stuff and get the air, fuel, and timing that we want and see how much power it makes. And then we swapped over. I'll go ahead and run this through again. Then we swapped over to a simple dual plane intake manifold. This is more normally the way that we run these. You got a dual plane, like a YN or an RPM air gap, and then like something like a 650 or 750 carburetor. And like I said, the MSD. And on this particular one, we also added a simple NOS like Sniper, very simple nitrous plate, adjustable from 75 to 100 to 125 horsepower. And then we added some nitrous to it because, it's a junkyard motor. No, we don't care about that. Nobody cares about that motor. And so that's exactly what we did. And you could see it made good power. Well, you can't see that yet, but you can see we ran through. So we'll run through this one more time so you guys can see all the photos. Big difference in terms of the way that the intake manifold looks on that kind of long runner deal there versus what happens when we do this on a a typical dual plane, because that's normally the way that we run. In most of the cases, the way that we used to get these motors is that we would get the motor from the wrecking yard. We take all the front accessory off and throw it away. We take the intake, all the EFI stuff, and just throw it away. And now I'm kicking myself for ever doing that, because now I kind of want that stuff back and I want to run something on it. But that's what happens. So let's take a look. You guys can kind of see now what's going on here as far as the layout for what the motor looks like and all of that. So let's take a look here at our power curves now. This is our factory curve with the long runner EFI intake manifold. It made 456 horsepower and 486 foot-pounds of torque. Again, this is run with the long tube headers the way that we run it. And you can see where our peak powers are. This is all very low. All of this happened below 5,000 RPM. The peak is like at 43 or 4,400 RPM. Peak torque is down at 32 or 3,300. Here's what happened when we put the dual plane intake manifold on there. Made a little more power, picked up to 370 horsepower, but dropped torque down to 476 foot-pounds of torque. So you can see a little bit more power past like 3,800 RPM, let's call it. But below that, lost out in torque production compared to the long runner factory EFI manifold. But we cured all of that by adding that plate setup on our carbureted intake manifold, put the simple nitrous setup under there, pick power up to over 500 horsepower. In this case, the peak number that we saw was 519 horsepower and a whopping 646 foot-pounds of torque there at the spike, obviously lower than that for most of the curve, but did, very, very well. One of the other things that we did is after running the nitrous is we did a cam swap. So we put on an extreme energy 276. I think I'm going to show you what the specs are here. Yeah, it is 510 lift at 224, 230 on a 110. And that picked up power quite a bit. And we went from 370 to 428 and then 515 foot-pounds of torque. And as you can see with the cam and the carburetor, it really made more torque than the carbureted setup did with the stock camshaft, even down low. In fact, it made more torque down low than the EFI setup did with a stock camshaft. So it did very well. And as I said, over 500 foot-pounds of torque. it did, it did really good in terms of torque production. We kind of expect this from a dual plane intake manifold in this case, but allowed the thing to continue to make power at least out to, all the way out to 5,500 RPM and would keep revving if we wanted it to. One of the things I wanted to point out, obviously we had to put a different valve spring setup on there. And even still, as of right now, I don't have the ideal spring combination, but I'm working on something that would be just a nice, easy, direct kind of bolt-in deal for this stuff. Because I think that there's a market for that, and it's something that I want to satisfy. Because I think this Gen 6 big block Chevy with a cam and like a carbureted intake and everything should be kind of the go-to for guys. And even if they're keeping the EFI intake manifold on there and they want to run some sort of smaller camshaft in there that still, has good drivability, but also offers a lot more power. Like I said, this thing made the same torque that it did with the EFI setup. So the camshaft's small enough on a motor that's 454 cubic inches. You could also go slightly smaller on the camshaft on this thing. You could go down to, something in the 250 advertised, 260 advertised. So something that would be like a 212 or 218 kind of thing, kind of like a low buck truck that we have for the LS, something like that for the big block. You could go to that and still pick up quite a bit of power over the stock stuff. As we saw, what we get almost 50. Yeah. 50 horsepower, 50, a little bit more than that. So it did good. Todd, you can't see the graph there. The big block stuff is good. What we get though is when we post this stuff, oh yeah, it made 400 and something horsepower. They're like, yeah, but that's what a Cam 5.3 makes. And it does, but a Cam 5.3 doesn't make 515 foot-pounds, especially not down here. And it's not starting out at over 450 foot-pounds, which is why these things are so popular for the application that they were made for, which obviously is towing, because we want to see, you need a whole bunch of low-speed torque. But not that we're promoting one thing over the other, but this is what they do. I mean, if you go to the wrecking yard and get something and get a Gen 6, I'm sure I've run a dozen of these at least. And this is what they do. This is what they always do. It might vary a little bit depending on what kind of shape that they're in, but the Gen 6 stuff is nice. 4-bolt blocks. They're factory hydraulic rollers. They got at least decent cylinder heads on them. They're not peanut ports. And you could see that they make, because they have small combustion chambers on them, 102, I think ours measured at. The small combustion chambers. And then if you want to have the longer runner intake manifold on there, you can, which is pretty cool. If you want to say EFI, for a lot of guys, if I was putting this in a Camaro or Chevelle or a C10 truck or something like that, just a carbureted deal makes it pretty easy. Just put the distributor in, just like any other big block guy is kind of used to, a carburetor and intake, a distributor, and then kind of away you go. And then what we did is, okay, if a guy wanted to do that and, wanted to be able to go to the drag strip and, run some kind of reasonable time in it, something that makes over 500 horsepower with, an easy shot of nitrous, and then, over 600 foot-pounds of torque, that's going to get stuff motivated. You're going to have a traction issue depending on how early you hit the nitrous. So that will work for a lot of simple kind of, street deals that guys are doing. And because it makes so much low speed power, you can, if spinning the tires is your thing, you should have no trouble at all doing any of that. But we'll see. In fact, I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and run through for guys that weren't here. You guys can kind of take a look at the combination that we ran on the big block with the EFI and the carbureted induction system. And then obviously we added the nitrous setup to it, simple plate system. And all of that worked out really good. Change, we got different jet sizes that we can run. Although with the solenoids that were on this simple sniper kit, because it's a low dollar kind of plates to set up, there's a limit to how much how much nitrous even the solenoids will support. But I'm sure we probably could go a little bit more than we did. But even at that, junkyard motor, which is why we love them, junkyard motor, simple carbureted deal, nitrous set, and we are on our way. Lunchbox is going on. Tim's first in. Pole position for Tim. Eric, what's going on? Get away. Let's go. Big block Chevys for the win. We love that easy button. Yep, it does work really, really well. When are we going to get that M90 Silverado chassis dyno redemption video? I know. I had one of the guys that reach out to me that it's not Tom Demuse that does that kit, but the other guy that does is now going into that market. I thought about this for a few years, talking to Tom about that, about doing that, about making that a business model, about doing blower kits for a whole bunch of different combinations and stuff, and decided that I didn't want to do that. I'm glad that somebody is, and I obviously wish him well. And he asked me if I wanted to do some testing with this stuff, and I'm like, I kind of have done M90 stuff to death, but he has other blower sizes, so who knows? Maybe we could do something. Shout outs, what's going on? Expecting a freeze tomorrow. Did you do anything to the heads? Or are they still non-adjustable? They're non-adjustable. We ended up later on putting roller rockers on it. But if they're non-adjustable, you might have to adjust the push rod length just to get the, get the preload correct. Depending on the camshaft, depending on the base circle of the cam. Connection is really spotty right now. Anyone interested in a Moose Big Block 400 for 346 heads, big cam? Does have a Big Block 727. Asking $3,000 for the combo. 400s are cool though. Somebody should snatch that up. -8, 20-mile-an-hour wind. Yeah, that is chilly. So centrifugal is the way to go on a 454. Does that translate to all big blocks? I don't know where you got your first statement, and then so I don't know how you got your second statement. Just changed the radiator yesterday, waiting for the winter blast to subside so I can go measure my bearing caps for my drive shaft. Fix that before I do the swap. Todd, what's going on, man? Oh, Todd can't see the charts. Mopar 400, absolutely. Always need a spare. I know, I would like to do a 400. I think that those would be cool because that's the shorter deck one, right? Richard, if I reach the horsepower potential of a set of heads on my V8, would I still be able to add horsepower by using it? Are you the same one that keeps asking this question every time? The engine's a Holden 308 with early heads, known for poor CFM. Yes, the nitrous, well, I don't know. Well, how much power does it make and where do the heads flow? I'm saying yes, that if you add 100 shot to it and you were theoretically at some horsepower limit of the heads, I think you're still going to add power. Because you're actually going to make the heads flow less by doing that because you're going to be displacing it. Drop-in spring kit would be cool. I still sell a couple of drop-in spring kits a month for the Vortex small block Chevy heads on eBay. Market exists even though most of the Vortex heads cracked a long time ago. Only 7 minutes late. There you go. Talking about G-rated big blocks in my next project. Is that for a big block for G bodies? Ship one of these aluminum 5.3s over. I have $575 saved up. Where is it you want to ship it? Gen 6 big block Chevy is monster with such just little work. I have 454, 86 C10, 600 lift cam, 109, 235, 245. That's a good size cam. Dual plane air gap. That should be good. Does it still have the stock heads on it? If you ever decide to do the 351 Big Bang turbo again, I will donate the cam, Keith Black dish pistons with big valve reliefs and timing set. Well, then it's not a Big Bang motor if we change the pistons in it. And if we do a Big Bang on it, you won't want the short block because it will be broken. So a couple of issues there. I love it when Big Block has a nasty cam. They sound good. David, what's going on? Thanks for the reply. I just like hearing what kind of power the science man made. Going to email my tune before I start my truck. Yeah, Todd probably start up just fine. You just need to not go into boost at all. You should drive it around NA and get it tuned correctly. How much can a stock bottom end take? Well, on the Gen 6 454 stuff, we're well into 4 digits. Is it true that Gen 6 block can go to 4,500 bore? I don't think that they can. I've never seen one go that far. Doing a Gen 6 496 HP 500. A 496 is the normal displacement for any of these factory blocks. Your connection fixed itself. All right. I have a 600 lift. Yeah, you told me about that. I was looking at the torque on the curve. Seems the centrifugal would flatten that out. It's going to be 9 degrees with a wind chill of 5 in Alabama. Wow. Yeah, that's funny bike. That's good. That's what my comment was on the description for this video, is that temperatures like that are not just boost weather, but they're really good boost weather, and even non-intercooled boost weather. You don't even need an intercooler, stuff like that, assuming you have a cold air. Cleaning is the hardest part of modifying cars. I didn't cover everything with disposable sheets, so I've got grinding dust. Oh, that's bad. Drop the base air cleaner with carb spacer versus flat base air cleaner and no carb spacer. Well, a carb spacer versus no carb spacer is really the question there, not the drop base air cleaner stuff. The drop base air cleaner would be something, and the carb spacer would be something, but you're not. Are you trying to multiply them together or something? Is 496 distributorless? I have the full Sniper EFI setup for my Gen 5 454. What would I need to switch to a 496? The 496 I'm talking about that I mentioned is a stroker version of the 454, not the 8.1. And the 8.1 is distributorless. It's more like it's exactly like an LS on the factory 8.1. I forgot the cam retaining plate on my ZZ4. Uh-oh. I can get away with a set of bearings. Did the cam walk out? And did it destroy the cam and the lifters and the... It could destroy lots of stuff like that. What do people recommend for painting bare steel in an engine bay? Black in color, and want to do rust prevention. Somebody have any ideas for them? In the process of buying a Gen 6 496, I plan on adding a 470 S475. I don't know what you mean by Gen 6 496. Are you talking about somebody made a stroker version of that? I'm hoping that's what you're talking about. Heads are ported with a 3-angle valve job, dual springs, now putting roller rockers and making the valve tread adjustable. Yeah, the roller rockers will be nice. You still need the right push rod length for that, but at least it's not a bolt down. I don't know what you'll gain on the rockers on going to a roller rocker. Probably some, but it depends on what camshaft you have in there right now. Simple question, 1998 454, is it possible to switch over to run a carburetor, or the computer creates a problem? You won't be able to run the factory computer with a carburetor. This is what we did here, but we just made it run as a carbureted motor. The carburetor doesn't need a computer. But the problem is the rest of your stuff that's computer controlled, like your transmission, if it is, the dash and all that stuff. What's the purpose of dual butterflies on LT1 and TPI throttle bodies instead of just a single one? What is the benefit? I don't know I don't know why they chose to do a dual blade. I don't know if they were thinking it was better distribution or something. Tim, what is it you need shipped to Illinois? I still don't understand what 5.3 you're talking about, other than a piping nightmare for boost. Yeah, that is. Those are a pain because you got to squish all the stuff down. I'm afraid it did. Oh yeah, you got stuff in the oil, Scott. I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's never good to see. I always have an intercooler and easy access to E85. So you want springtime? Yeah, that's good. Don't do it as a big bang. Just do it as a max effort stock bottom end with just pistons that have more clearance for a good cam. Would like to see it with an F303 cam or small block. Yeah, I'm not really interested in doing a dedicated build for somebody. The big bang stuff is its own thing. And then if it's not that, then it's just a buildup of a motor. And if I was going to do that and I was going to put pistons in it, I wouldn't do a hyper-eutectic piston, that's for sure. If I'm going to do anything but a big bang on a factory deal, I'm going to put a forged piston in it. And if I'm going to do that, I'm definitely going to put a forged rod in it too. VHC engine paint for the engine bay, somebody's recommending. The rod bearing spun, so it pivoted and, oh, okay. Carb spacer versus drop base question is due to limited hood clearance. Okay. I have found that carb spacers always have to be tested. Sometimes they're worth nothing. Sometimes they're worth something. Sometimes they trade power, which is normally the case depending on what intake manifold you're testing it on. And so it might be that's not even worthwhile. I'm the same guy obsessed with a similar question on the Holden. The motor in question makes 330 horsepower at the crank, and I'm wanting to add 150 shot. It's for drag and drive. Well, you know what we're going to tell you, right? Just go do it. I wouldn't start out at 150 shot. I'd start out much smaller than that and then see what it does and then see if it likes it and then go up. Because that way you get more data points. You go, okay, look, I put a 75 shot in it and it did this. And then I put a 100 shot in it. And then if you can get the thing to hook up and make a decent pass, then you can go, okay, from a 75 to 100, I gained this much mile an hour. Okay, that's doing what I think it should. If you gain 20 miles an hour, you're like, okay, I didn't get a good run before. If it gained no miles an hour, you're like, I either had a bad run or the nitrous isn't doing anything. So I probably should not keep trying to add that until I figure out what that is. But it just gives you more data. Has any progress been made on the Fox Body LS? That's not going to be installed for a while. Picked up 24 miles an hour, my 455, switching to double roller rockers. That's a lot. Do you have any opinion on the Aces TBI fuel injection? I've never even seen it, so I wouldn't know anything about it. Well, our combustion chamber is so big on big block Chevys, is it for valve unshrouding? That should help, but I don't know why the OEMs did that. But a lot of racing big block stuff is not as big. And on the 98, on the Gen 6 stuff, it's small. It's only 102 cc's. On the engine bay, degrease it, Scotch Bright Red and aluminum foil wiring and black urethane catalyzed paint should be fine. We painted ours body color when Brian and Ben did the GLH, and it looks amazing. But now I don't want to touch it because it's too nice. Would a GT45 be too small for LQ4? I believe you push it to 800. Would running it at that max level be the reliable? No, that's not what I would do. I wouldn't try to make 800 with an LQ4 because I don't think a 6 liter will do that. But I do think that if you want to make 800 right now, you're going to want to make more. So there's a better choice for a GT than a GT45 to make 800. In fact, we're going to have some here very, very shortly. But otherwise, a 7875 from VS Racing. Building a 460 as well. I was wondering what would be a good setup for street or strip. You just got to tell me the power level that you're talking about. Got a cutoff wheel that'll fix your hood clearance. Richard, in response to my comment on your live feed a few days ago, my cousin has a 523 big block. Okay. Ooh, that's a big one. A ZF 5-speed? Wow. In first gear, at idle, you can hold the brake and dump the clutch. I don't know what that means. If you have the brake on and you dump the clutch, shouldn't that stall the car? Shouldn't that stall the motor? And it will sit there and spin the... Oh, okay, I didn't read the bottom of it. And it will sit there and spin the rear tires. You're saying at idle, so with no throttle opening. That doesn't make any sense to me. At idle, the motor is making no power. Do you have access to that Y pipe handmade turbo hot slide? If I could ask for measurements or angles. Are you talking about the one that I made, or actually I didn't make it? Well, I have made a couple of them, but Jason made the one that Jason at JT Fab made the one that I use on the LS stuff But that's not the one that I'm going to put in the car, though, because I don't know that that will fit in the car. I don't know it'll fit with the cross member and all that stuff. Slowly spin and chirp. I'm looking for 400 or 450 horsepower. What kind of man with a plan? What? Okay, I'm building a 460. So take a look at the 460 stuff that I have up at 400 to 450 horsepower. It's very minor. That's a dual plane intake manifold and the cam, and on a 460, that's pretty easy to get. Big Bang and engine with a whole set 80. I have a spare one. I'll send it. Compressor side. I don't know how much power that turbo will even support. It won't. It's not going to make. It's not going to make 1500 horsepower. The 523 has so much torque, and the first gear, that ratio is so low it overpowers the brakes. I know. I still don't understand how. I still don't understand how a motor that's idling at 600 RPM could ever break the tires loose with no throttle angle. I don't understand how that's possible. I've never seen anything like that. I'll hold on for the purchase of the turbo until yours are out. As far as not choosing a 6-liter for making 800 horsepower. No, Delgado, I'm saying that I wouldn't choose a GT45 turbo to make 800 horsepower with a 6-liter. I would choose a different turbo. The 6-liter is perfect for that. Is E85 worth it with a wet plate setup? Worth it for what? The E85 is always good. It's always more octane. So it's always more better than pump gas if that's your other thing that you're using. And I would need to know how much power your NA motor makes versus how much nitrous you're trying to add to it. And then it's always better to have more octane than you need. You can never have too much octane. I know guys are going to tell me that, oh yeah, it's going to slow the burn rate down. It's going to foul the plugs or it's going to do whatever. And it doesn't do any of that stuff. If I take a junkyard LS, an LM7 that's 9 point something to 1 and run 118 octane in it, guess what happens? Nothing. It just makes the same power as it does with 91. 550 wheel horsepower NA. I'm spraying a 200 shot. Yeah, I would do that. I would run E85. Are you just running the E85 through the nitrous setup and not through the rest of the fuel system? How often have you seen rods and cranks break, and under what conditions? Mostly extreme abuse or a mix of... I've never broken a crank, so I've never seen that happen. Even on these big bang things, the crank never breaks. Rods do break, and pistons break when we're trying to find out how much power they will actually take. Trying to copy the handmade turbo hot side from your past uploads and see if I can get a smaller version to work on the Fox body with forward-facing turbos on the passenger side. Okay. That shouldn't be hard, but you don't want any dimensions from any of my things to do that. You need to have the motor sitting in the chassis and see what exhaust manifolds I don't know what exhaust manifolds you have, but whatever exhaust manifolds you have, those just need to connect together and put the turbo wherever you're going to put the turbo in that engine bay. So none of the stuff that I have would help you. There. I mean, it's a lot easier to do that with it in the vehicle. Just tack the stuff together. Here, we'll run this one again. Kind of mix it up a little bit. There's Troy. Are the pistons forged on a Gen 6? No, not on the ones that we normally run. But I think that there are the L21, which is in like top kicks and big heavy duty stuff. That version of that Gen 6 454 also has coil packs on it, like an LS, kind of the transition for them to the Gen 7 8.1 liter that has that also. That motor has those and has forged internals in it. Dedicated fuel cell for the plate. Yeah, like I said, Mike, I think it's a good idea. A 200 shot, you need to have octane in that, and you need to be taking away timing just to make it safe. A 90 centimeter compressor. I don't know, that a centimeter measurement doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know anything about that particular turbo because I've never tried it. I had to drive a 500-inch Cadillac that would not stop in gear. It was like 12, had white leather interior, and the power brake belt was broken. Did it have a hydro boost on it or something? Have you had any luck using normal exhaust flange gaskets on a turbo kit you've made? On most of my stuff, I don't even run gaskets on them. Honestly, if I run a T4 or T6 housing and the turbo goes on there, 90% of them don't have gaskets on them. It certainly works in Freedom units and Bald Eagles. No, it's like a 77 millimeter turbo or an 80 millimeter turbo or whatever. Should I run this drag and drive on E85? It's fairly available here in Australia. Yeah, if you have enough compression and that's necessary, probably be good. I didn't believe it until I did it myself. The granny low first gear on these 1-ton manual trans is incredibly low. It will stall if you try this in second gear. Yeah, I would think that the motor would immediately shut off. If you let the clutch out with your foot on the brake and you let the clutch out with the thing idling, I don't know how it doesn't do anything but stall. I'm reading a whole set tech document, and the AT80 apparently weighs 100 pounds. That's a big, heavy turbo. I remember picking up who sent that to me? Innovate or Turbonetics sent me an 88 millimeter turbo when, we were trying to make 1,000 horsepower, which is just silly, with the 327 Ford that we had way back in the day. And he's like, I said, I think we need an 88. He's like, you don't really need an 88 for what you're doing. I said, yeah, I think we need an 88. And I think it was a mid-frame turbo or something. And he said, okay, I'll send it. I got it. I'm like, wow, this thing's gigantic. I guess the gasket for bent flanges, if you've had luck. The only problem I've ever had with the gasket is when the gasket no, we don't want that. When the gasket overhung the opening and all the heat basically sheared off the edge that was overhanging it and put it into the turbo, which is not good. For the 0304 Cobra, why does the boost drop off a little when you add full-length headers? You want it to drop off. That's better. That means it's making more power because you've made more NA power. And so if you make the motor more efficient and have the blower speed be the same, that means you're making more power. The ideal situation is for you to spin that blower as fast as you're spinning it right now and have it make no boost. If you could make the motor so efficient, like make it bigger, have it ported heads, camshaft, all that stuff. If you can do that and keep bringing the boost down, it will keep making more power. More power at a lower boost is always better because the blower also flows more at a lower pressure with the same speed. 76 or so front wheel drive, 500 must have been hydro boost. Yeah. Also had a customer with an 89 Ram Cummins 5-speed that the fuel shutoff went bad. Had to use fourth gear to kill the motor. Every other gear would spin the tires at idle. A diesel I could see more possibly doing that only because it's at wide open throttle. I mean, it has no throttle at all, but a gas motor has a restrictor plate on it basically. And so it only has the amount of air that bleeds by there. They're just throttling the diesel with fuel. So that's what's stopping it from making. And it will make at idle, I would say that a diesel would make a lot more torque at idle than a gas motor does. But like I said, if you're telling me it does it, then I guess it does it. And I just have never seen that and don't understand how that would be possible. But I have not seen everything. I've not seen every darn thing. Let's go to our Gen 6 Big Block 454. That's why we come here, so we get to see new stuff. I have a Shady said, I suspect we're fake GM and they're clacky. What was that, Bobby? Scrolling. Oh. It's for a 28-foot boat. They put the 82s on all out 2JZs. On a 12-valve Cummins, takes 7 seconds to spool. Oh, it's for a 28-liter boat? Okay. That's pretty big then. Some diesel's going to lean out to 80 to 1 at low idle. There. Big rig makes 2,000 foot-pounds of torque at 1,800, 1,000 above idle. Yeah, but that's with full fueling though. But it doesn't have that at idle though. Does some of the pressurized boosts go out the exhaust valve during overlap? No. Nope. You don't need to worry about overlap. If you put overlap in your camshaft and it makes more power NA, it will make more power under boost. I have yet to see that not happening. Thinking I want to run a sniper on a 406. My desert truck. I'm running a ProFarm 750 now. I thought the guys went away from carburetors on those on desert trucks because of the fuel sloshing and stuff. Like to see a 427 big block, 9 to 1, Merlin 345 heads, and twin 70 millimeter turbos. A Dart single. This is all very oddly specific. Dart single plane, 242 cam. Is that something that you have, Mike? To recap, you said Gen 6 Big Block has all forged internals. No, I didn't say that at all. I said a Gen 6 Big Block does not have forged internals, except for that one specific one, the L21. The L29, which is what's in all the trucks and everything, does not have forged internals. Mike, the power output will be whatever those turbos will support. All the rest of the stuff is kind of irrelevant. It could be almost any cylinder head. It could be a bigger cam than that or a smaller cam than that. But the turbos will still be able to do what the turbos do if you turn them all the way up. I ordered some LS lifters to replace the noisy lifters I have now. We'll be getting injectors soon, like your Hellcat injector package. Young Bob said your lifters look way better. They are LS7 lifters, so they should work good. We've had them. We haven't had any issues with those. I think it's a good idea to switch to a sniper. I don't know what sniper you're talking about. 408 LSA GM performance heads. What horsepower am I looking at? I don't know. I don't know what the rest of your combination is. I don't know what the cam is. I don't know what the intake manifold is. I don't know what the compression is. I don't know any of that. And did you say a 408 LSA? Is it a supercharged combination? Zoo Trucks here. Small block Ford let me down. Help me remove this junker and replace it with a new M112. Stubby motor and a custom turbo setup. Yeah, I mean, the turbo stuff would work really good. TBI sniper system. How much do Gen 6 heads flow? I don't remember. I think we did flow some, but I don't remember what the numbers were. Richard, what's your favorite big block displacement? I don't really have one. I like all the big blocks. They are all good. I would only start looking at specific displacements if I was looking at something like Bonneville. Boost is a measurement of restriction. More boost equals more restriction. If you lower boost by putting headers on, that means you make the same power. Your engine isn't restricting the blower as much. Yeah, you're just making more NA power and the boost comes down. Same thing if you made the motor bigger, ported heads, cams, all that stuff. Tim, happy to help, man. Happy and peppy and bursting with love. I need to look and see. I was talking to Jimmy about this today. I have one of HP's old turbo kits in my storage. And I need to get rid of it because it's just a big box. And it's probably been sitting there for 10 years or something. And I'm never going to use it, but I need to look and see what it is. I don't remember if it's a modular Ford or if it's a Hemi. And I know it's not a 5-liter Mustang. It's not that. It's not like a Windsor Ford. So it's got to be either an LS or a Hemi or maybe a modular Ford. LSA supercharged 408 GM performance heads, Holley X Max. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much boost you're running or any of that stuff. So I would just be a guess. I've never run any LSA superchargers. So I don't know if yours is ported. And I just don't know how much. I really don't have a feel for how much power they'll support. I mean, I think I've seen like guys that have done fully custom ported deals and stuff that have made a lot of power with them. But most of them I don't think are like super high power deal. It's a good AR win for a turbo and a drag race application. I think the first thing we'd have to talk about is all the other things. The AR is the very, very last thing that I would worry about. In fact, I'm more often than not, I don't worry about it at all because we just put the right size turbo on the engine combination that is a known combination. We know that the NA power output is and the displacement and the low speed power and all that. And then we size the turbo for the thing that we're trying to get done. And then if we want to wiggle it around a little bit one way or the other, then we would change the AR. What is a better, stronger big block, stock versus stock? 502. There aren't any 502 big blocks from production ones ever made. So I don't know what those are. That's all aftermarket stuff. If it's for a 5.7, what would you let it go for? Oh, the Hemi. I need to see what it is first. One of us is driving his Gen 4 big block and a dually. So it's the Mark IV stuff. Those are good. That's what I had in the Suburban or in the dually that we had. I'm very happy to say my K-frame lines up. Oh, I'm very happy to say my K-frame lines up as per my stock engine placement. Plus or minus 3 millimeters. Nice. That's right on the beam. I think if I went through and did some detective work, I might be able to go back and see what the last, just take a little bit of digging, go up and see what the last HP turbo kit that I ever ran was. But then I don't know that that's the last one that's there. I would think it would be, but I would have to look. And I'd have to go back a ways to find out. Do you have any experience in diesel tuning? Absolutely zero. I know that if you add a whole bunch more fuel, it makes more power, but other than that, I don't know about that. I need to buy a dually 4-door 4x4 with a bad motor or trans. Send all the big blocks to Virginia. Have a Cummins trucks. The only way it spins the tires idle is on ice. and it's tuned hot. No engine, just brakes. The tires loose. Engine just brakes, tires loose at 800 RPM. My Mercury Marine Big Block 502 GM or Gen 5 is a GM casting. How's that not stock? I don't look at marine stuff as factory stuff. What I'm saying is that it's not there's no automotive application that they ever put a 502 in anything like what Mercury Marine did. And to me, those are aftermarket motors. So what they did is something different. The 502s are not like, you never found those in any trucks. And so the ones that I'm talking about for production ones that's a production block. Obviously GM made them, but it's not the automotive stuff. Speaking of headers, the headers on my 97 LT1 are rusting pretty bad, even though the EGR tube rusted off and broke. Should I get T304 stainless headers for the salty air? I live near the ocean. Well, how long have you had them? You just have to decide what I'd look at is what is the cost of upgrading to the stainless stuff, and will they not deteriorate too? Because I mean, let's look at that environment that they're in. Is that cost worth having to buy another set of headers? Like if you could put a set of headers on and just drive it, and then you're going to sell the car later, I wouldn't worry about it. How long are you going to keep it versus what does it cost versus, what's the trade-off? Are those dynographs on the Geo 1 liter from Bonneville? On mine, the only ones I think that I have up on the channel are the ones that we did that were the stock XFI, which is not Bonneville. I have lots of testing on the chassis dyno that I did on my Sprint, but not a Metro though. That's a completely different thing. Do you think that the deck and cylinder wall thickness on a Gen 6 reduces its possible power output? On a Gen 6 big block? Do you think that the deck thickness or you think that the deck thickness and the cylinder walls are thinner than earlier Mark IV stuff or Mark V or Gen 5 stuff? LQ9 stock displacement, forged internals, ported 823 heads, 1,000 horsepower, better at the wheels, helps. Yeah, I wouldn't need, again, Lunchbox, I wouldn't even worry about an AR question. If you're trying to do 1,000, you need to get a turbo that's capable of doing that, like an S475 or something thereabouts. The mild cell headers are only 3 years old and are even ceramic coated. Yeah. And then are you planning on keeping it more than 3 years? And then what's the cost difference between the mild headers? If they were ceramic coated, those are not going to be cheap. GM would replace the truck 454s under warranty across the parts counter with a 502 with an upgrade charge. Yeah, that's an aftermarket thing that they're doing. That's an over-the-counter thing. To me, that's not a production motor. Like a 502 is not something that I would. It's not an LS1, it's not an LS2, it's not a Gen 6 big block, it's not any of those things. It's either a boat motor or it's something that came over the counter like all of their other crate motors that they sell. Yeah, 502 is not that big bore motor. Those are good. I like 502s a lot because then you make 540s out of them. But you can't do that with the production stuff. 496 is usually on all of the 396, 427, 454 big blocks that we associate with the GM stuff from the factory. 496 is usually the stroker displacement for that. Ceramic coating applied properly should be good for 10 years. Depends on whether it's done on the inside and the outside. Can get a 496 and 8100. Yeah, that's a different generation big block. Yes, we have some more bore distortion with torque plates installed on a Gen 6 than a Gen 4. Have you guys sonic those to see what the wall thickness is? Or are you saying that the distortion comes from the deck thickness? I mean, have you drilled those to see what it is? I always thought that a Gen 6 that I would feel more comfortable running a lot of boost on a Gen 6 than I would on a Mark IV motor. 304 stainless headers won't rust anywhere near as quickly as mild steel. 321 headers simply won't rust if that's an option. You can even get 383 strokers from GM. Yeah, they sell all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think you could get ZR1 crate motors for a while. I have a 98 454 that was in a crate until we fired it up last year with a 750 Holly and a single plane. Sounds like. My question is, what's the best cam I should swap in for drag racing? Well, your problem with that, if it's a factory 98, is that you don't have a lot of piston to valve clearance with that. So you're limited in how much camshaft you can run. You're going to run something that's like in the mid 230s there, and you're going to have to check piston to valve clearance to see how much piston to valve clearance you actually have with your camshaft. So you're not going to be able to make a whole bunch of power with that combination and drag race it in that configuration. The best thing to do is put better heads on it, like an airflow research head or something like that, and then also put a piston in it that has a dome and a valve relief, and it would be much better off. That way you'd have higher compression, but you'd also have enough piston to valve clearance to run like a real size camshaft in there that would make lots of power. There. Those factory guys not giving us the amount of piston to valve clearance we need. You know, the LS, well, all of the production stuff is the same way. All the stuff I've seen anyways, you know, an LS is the same way that you can only get so much in there. Yeah, Steve, it seems like you're gonna have to step up to some stainless ones. If you can, are you able to source some like from offshore or somewhere, an inexpensive set? Because there are inexpensive stainless headers. I don't know how great they are, but they got to be better than a mild steel header, I would think. Big strokers are what 460s are for. Yeah, the Ford definitely has an advantage over the big block Chevy for that, so that you can put, like, you know, even on production 460s, particularly the earlier ones, you can make them into 557s, which is, you know, the comparison always is for the production stuff on the Ford, it's 557. For a big block Chevy, it's 496. Would you trust lifting a 5.4 4-valve by the headers? Yeah, as long as all the header bolts are in, I wouldn't care about that. 321 can crack. Oh, the 321 stainless. The Mark IV is stronger than the Mark VI Dart copied the Mark IV block. So did they copy the 2-valve or the 2-bolt block or the 4-bolt block? And I don't think Dart copied the Mark IV block. Dart did their own block. And a Dart block is a far cry from either one of those production blocks in terms of strength. How does a little of rust and a little pitting in the cylinder wall is okay to run? Yeah, it depends. I mean, can you do a ball hone and get it kind of good and then run it? And how long are you wanting to run it for? Okay, so you don't put the crate motor stuff in the stock category, even though 100% of the parts installed on it. Zoo truck, look, you're not going to convince me. That's not a production motor. It never came in a truck or a van or any of those other things. It's a marine motor. And so if you want to talk about, do you want a big bang a marine motor? That's a different conversation. What about commercial vehicles like motorhomes and large trucks? Are those not stock motors? Stainless headers are the way to go. They seal way better. The flange is better quality. No warping for stainless headers. Einstein described carburetors so well. It's quantum entanglement theory. Light hone and reinstall with rust. The Big Bang stuff that we ran, especially the first one, I think it was the first one. I honestly don't remember if it's the 4.8 or the 5.3. I thought it was the 4.8. Definitely had rust in it, and it definitely even had stains in the cylinder walls, and it cleaned up fine. It ran perfect NA, and then We ran lots of boosts on it. Stainless Works will be getting a call soon. They quote around $2,000. Wow, that's expensive. I would definitely be looking for inexpensive stuff. Will an 8.1 block accept a distributor? Yes. Yeah, we've run carb-rated versions of the 8.1. And Dart makes a dual plane intake manifold for it. I classify stuff as a production thing. It came in a production car or truck and not a boat. That was from CarCraft series on big blocks that said Dart used the Mark IV as a starting point. Yeah, they looked at the Mark IV block and said, how do we improve this? And then they went about improving it. A lot of the things that they took from the Mark IV block were, I think that all of the Dart blocks, if I remember right, have an oil pump or a fuel pump eccentric for it, or a fuel pump mounting block off, not a block off. Which one am I trying to think of here? A mounting provision for the fuel pump, like a mechanical fuel pump, which the Gen 6 stuff doesn't have. You can't put a mechanical fuel pump on those. You have to use an electric fuel pump. So I think that when they were doing them, they were thinking, okay, let's do this so that a guy can have, we could sell it to more guys that could run it carb-rated. Lots of them will be running it carb-rated, so they can have a mechanical fuel pump there. And if they don't want it, we just, like we do, just cover it with a block-off plate. Does the 8.1 have LS style intake runners on the heads? Not LS. I mean, kind of. They're elongated, kind of like a cathedral port style, but not as extreme as a cathedral port head does. I've got a Dart Big M block. It's pretty much a copy of the original GM bow tie block, except it has priority main oiling and it's thicker pretty much everywhere with better material. GM aftermarket performance. That Dart stopped making the carb intake for the 8.1. I've been looking for one. I still have one. And I thought I was told a little while ago that they did another run of those. As much as EFI guys want to trash carburetors work as well as a tuned symphony. All the components work in pure harmony. Yeah, there's you can't say that things don't work because they've been working for years and years and years. It always comes back to the same argument of people wanting things to be better. The thing that I like is the best thing in the world. It's better than all the other stuff. And not only that, not only do I like it, but now everybody else has to like it too. And then, so because I like this, all of the other stuff is lesser. Would you sell your 8.1 carb intake manifold? I can't, not until after I run stuff with it. If I ran square port intake gaskets on an oval port big block Chevy, would the gap around the ports hurt anything? No, you're talking about just the gaskets. Do you have is one of either the intake or the head, is one of them oval and one of them rectangular port, or are you talking about just the gaskets? As long as the gasket seals, it's not gonna hurt anything. E85 on a big block Chevy iron heads. Could you run the same compression as aluminum heads? What, I don't know what you mean. Could I? Are you talking about with detonation being the limitation thing? I could run 12.5 to 1 on a big block Chevy on 87. I just have to put enough camshaft in it. I like 88 Supras. They will beat anything. There you go. You overbuilt. You forgot to put that you like 88 Supras and they'll beat anything. And then everything else is like stupid and terrible. Because if one of them is good, then all the other ones have to be obviously less than good. Found out why EFI is good, though, when I lived in Colorado, driving from 8,000 feet to 5,000 feet. Carbs are good as long as they stay in your area. I see people talk about that, but I ran carb-rated stuff in my Z, ran carb-rated stuff in my Camaro, and drove up to Tahoe from down around sea level and stuff. I didn't have any problems with that. I know. I got you over, Bill. We are number one, and all the others are number 2 or lower. Mystery men. I ran fast, easy EFI, my Gen 6, board 30, stock head, ZZ502 cam. I think that's the cam that we ran in the 8.1. It did good. Hillbilly like tractor pulling over drag racing. The tractor pulling is amazing stuff. That's why I can agree with a lot of what you say. Always question the status quo. Yeah, and agreeing with me is not a good way to go. 7Ms like to break cams at 500 horsepower. Why do they break how does the cam break? What's like stopping the cam from rotating? Is it getting a frequency or something? Is it too much twist on the front of the cam and something's dragging on it? Do they bind up in the cam towers or something? I'm curious as to why that would be a thing. I like those Supras. Obviously, I like the turbo ones better, but those are cool. But I like a 3rd gen RX-7 more than I like the Supras. Coyotes rule, the rest rule. Best engine, 5 liter and under. Let's see. There. It's exactly what you did in the junkyard Chevy build. I'm pushing 530 horsepower in my Chevy. Which one was that, Alex? What started my 454 Q-Jet, -14, just to prove that you could. Nice. Because we know Q-Jets are like fuel injection. People in the market is basically cornered by Radar. You see the video of the cat dozer pulling the Danco sled around at the tractor pulls? Could have pulled it right out the back door. I didn't. Velbach RPM heads and intake. Ports don't match. Oval intake gasket overhangs in the ports a little. Can you trim the gasket? Bobby, what's going on? Now you have me thinking, should I question you now? You should. Always thought 3rd gen RX-7 had a similar shape to a Viper. They are, I that to me is one of the best. That's one of the ones I would like to have for that 90s generation stuff. Need some idle tuning advice. I also have a Fox Mustang with a 331, Holly 750, vacuum secondaries. My air fuel gauge tells me I'm idling at 12.7. Should I do a jet change? No, I normally don't go by air fuel ratio when we're idling it. We go by what the motor wants. So what Steve showed me he likes to do is because he likes to set idle stuff, and I don't even care about that when I'm dyno testing, as long as it will idle. But he goes in and goes through a procedure and screws the idle screws all the way in, backs them out a turn and a half, and then starts adjusting from there. He does that on the primaries and secondaries, and then starts at the idle from there. And then he adjusts the idle set screw, and then adjusts the idle trim. And okay, let's say you want to idle it. Oh, it's got to be 14.7 to 1. Well, it doesn't really have to be. In fact, it might, depending on what camshaft you have there, it might not like that. It might want to be richer than that. It might want to be leaner than that. Normally, it wants to be richer. And so you adjust it where the thing is like happy. Like it will tell you. It's like, oh, yeah. I like that. I like that right there. And so whatever that air fuel is, not long as it's not 9 to 1 or 10 to 1, if it's 12.7, 13, 13.5, whatever, that's all fine. And a jet change isn't really going to help you with idle anyways. That's an idle circuit. I have an 81 RX-7 12A motor. I like that. Built bottom on 27 PSI HX40 stock cam intake side. There's now a table in the living room. Uh-oh. Supers deserve a 1UZ. See, V8 stuff. That's the way to go. Had to replace my Q-jet because the shaft's oval in the throttle plate. Oh, really? He's after my heart. That's the way I do it most of the time. Yeah, Steve's Brulee is really good. Can you do a big bang on a rotary motor? That would be an RPM thing, right? I've never even run one. I just like to run one on the dyno. I need a 7 MGE crankshaft. Wankle, wankle. I can't even find a rotary to do it. I'd love to run one on the dyno. Oh, the ultimate 510 horsepower, Alex? Okay. Did you guys get the, Alex, did you guys get the, like a ported version of those 220 heads? What's your airfill at full throttle? I'm sure that's not at me. That's, you're asking somebody else there, Crazy Foot. I got the whole car, RX-7. In their right mind would make block huggers out of 321. In my opinion, Supra deserves a 2JZ. Yep. Runs even, but needs new O-rings resealed. Full throttle, I'm at 12.1 to 1. That's fine. That's safe. If it's NA. Dumb question, but it's not a dumb question because there are no dumb questions. Can I remove the headsets one at a time? Yes, you can do that, and that'll work. I have done that before. Because you don't ever loosen up, you don't ever untorque the head gasket. Is there any tests where an engine ran at sustained high RPM? We don't normally do that on the engine dyno. I had mine shipped. It took 3 days. Wish I ordered it way before I started the teardown. Ask on all the pages, on all your pages, if someone will donate you a rotary. Well, I'm asking right here. So somebody find me a 12A or 13B. People want to save gas idle. If you did the math, you're saving such a minuscule amount over the course of a lifetime. Yeah, I remember watching the Engineering Explained channel or whatever, and they were talking about the start and stop feature on these cars, and then how much fuel it takes to restart the car, and they showed what it was. It's like this much. It only changes 0.6 from idle to full throttle. It seems odd. That's not odd at all. Those are different circuits and different engine conditions. What's a safe boost level on a stock Gen 6? I like to slap a blower on it or turbos on it, possibly a shot of nitrous. What size shot can handle? Don't worry, I want to blow the motor up for building it. Are you, if you're going to add boost to it, you need to put ring gap in it. We just ran a 125 shot on it. It's no problem. Where the rotaries come in, RX-7s only. Well, in some of the earlier stuff they came on RX-3s or 4s or whatever. And then in do they come in little trucks too? Do you have a video about fixing lifter tick on a GM? Not other than replacing the lifters. I don't know what that lifter tick is. I don't understand what that is. Richard, for LS to trade to swap an RX-7. Most of the info I'm gathering here is not California smog legal. I have an early 5.7 LS1 with 806 heads, over 25 years old. What would you recommend to do with setup being in California to maximize power? I don't know anything about you doing, I don't know who has emissions legal stuff for your car. Thought the Chevy auto start vehicle have a number of starts on it before the ECU says it needs to be replaced or not. A lot of the vehicles do. I remember the Toyotas did that. My wife has that on her Mercedes and we just turned it off. It's just annoying to have the thing start every time you take off from a stoplight or whatever. I don't like that. You're driving in town. We're not going to get very good mileage driving in town anyways. what year I have access to those two mid-80s RX-7s are about to be crushed. I don't care what year it is. I just want a 12A or a 13B, like a running engine. That's all I care about. Wow. Man, those things are loud. I remember racing with those things. It was crazy. It was cray-cray. Wah, Troy. Richard's a long way from Tennessee. Trading around buying. Yeah, but Brian Tooley is in Kentucky. So he can ship it back for me. Never thought about startup enrichment. Especially when people pump the carburetor a couple times before you start it, because that's really the trick for starting a carbureted motor. 2 pumps, starts right up. Had several second gen RX-7s in the late 90s. All of them were NA. My brain doesn't understand rotary voodoo. It is really weird. I was mesmerized the first time I got to see one that was disassembled. I'm like, how does that work? Oh yeah, I can kind of see that. Love the nitrous big block shots. Wah, come on. Let's see some graphs. Are the mid-80s what you're looking for? I don't care. It doesn't matter to me at all. Late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, whatever. Just an early carbureted one, like one with the Mikuni carburetors, would be cool. Just make life easier and not have to fuel inject it. Overbuilt. Brian is in Bardstown, Kentucky. Brian Tooley Racing is. See a 13B with a turbo on the dyno. Noisiest thing I've ever heard of the dyno. Yeah. Yeah, without nitro on it. They are loud. They're screechers. What happens if the carb is on a plane with the engine instead of tilted forward? You mean if it's flat? It works fine on the dyno. I thought you were going to get like ultra technical. What happens if the carburetor is on a plane and the plane is going 700 miles an hour? Yeah, Rob Dom has some cool stuff. What is an RX-7 or a 12A weigh? Late 13B had problems with oil metering pumps. I had to premix my 91. Yeah. The other thing is I'm in Washington, but I'm sure I can get one. I probably will have to go up to Washington. That's where the V12 is. RX-8. I don't think an RX-8 was a 3-rotor anyways. I think the RX-8 was still a 2-rotor, right? Any of my RX guys out there? We got 1 more minute. Yeah, they do have a thirst for oil. The V12 LS. That's up in Washington. Richard looked it up. 3 hours and 53 minutes. Yeah, 4 hours. That's not very far. No, that's way closer than West Tech is. The carb flange is tilted forward to keep it level, where the engine tilts backwards in line with the drive shaft. Big block with nitrous is better than a big block with a turbo. Okay. So you're looking for traction and not power. Oh, dang. Nitrous shots fired. When you get this way, I'll give you the draw through turbo. What turbo is that? I thought all the automotive Wankels were 2-rotor only. Yeah, the only one that was 3-rotor was a Cosmo or something. Was that a 3-rotor? Rotor in the bathtub. Definitely eat enough oil to call 2 strokes. I wonder about them processing so much oil. I mean, does that make them prone to detonation? I would think that it would. That's got to be a thing. I'll have to talk to Rob or somebody. Although Eric at West Tech has a lot of rotary experience too, I think. A Rotomaster Gary. Oh, okay. Yeah, they do throw fireballs, that's for sure. Winston, I'm just gonna run one of these GT45s or whatever as a draw through because if it breaks, it's a couple $100 or whatever. It's not a big deal. But I don't think we'll hurt it in what we're doing because we don't need to make a whole bunch of runs with it. It would be kind of cool though. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back tomorrow.